Hello everyone, welcome to For His Namesake. We're glad that you're here. This is Valentine and I'm Martina, and we are going to today discuss a topic that is actually a request, but I'm sure it can be a request from anybody because it's a very popular topic. A lot of people are always curious about it, and that is, are we in the end times? Or are we getting close to the end times? Now, Valentine and I, here's a disclaimer, we're not biblical scholars, we're not, very knowledgeable of Bible history, but if you are, and you know quite a bit, then please share in the comments below. And I know that my husband knows a lot, but he said that Valentine and I would be best to talk about this, and because he knows a lot, and so he was saying that he might kind of take over the conversation, I guess. So that's why we're doing this, but we really don't know a whole lot. We can go according to Scripture, and pretty much that, and then what we believe, maybe what would be, whether we're in the end times or not, based on circumstances around the world. So,
and I'll be honest with you, I've always been confused by what people mean by end times. Do they think end times means before or after the rapture? Are they talking about the tribulation type end times? Or are they talking about end times as in wars? So you have to tell me, what is your perception on end times? Because I'm kind of confused by that term, to be quite honest. I've always pictured Jesus coming and then bad things happen, you know. That's just an example of what I thought end times is. So.
Exactly, yeah. And I took it a step further and thought end times meant like end times. The world's already pretty much over, and now it's the battle between Christ and Satan. That's what I was thinking. So, and you might think I'm silly for thinking that, but hey, you're good. Your guess is as good as mine, right?
And if you want to know more about the subject, specifically in Revelation, my dad has been doing a series of shorts based on that book, so I encourage you to check it out.
Please do.
And on that note, we will get started.
Yes. Okay, I think you were going to go ahead and read something from Matthew chapter 24.
Yes. Jesus, practically the whole chapter, Jesus talks about the signs of the times and the end of the age. That's what my subtitle says for that chapter. That many will be deceived. People say, I am the Christ, or look, there he is. And we've witnessed that on the news. You know, people say Jesus will arrive on so-and-so date, and we find out that's not true. So that part's already come to pass, and it still is happening today. Verse 6 says, and you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. That's true. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So just because there are wars, don't think it's the end already. There's more to come. In verse 8 he says, this is the beginning of sorrows. In Greek, that means the beginning of labor pains. You know, when the pains start, it doesn't mean that it's over just yet. You still have to give birth, but before that, the pains are going to get more and more intense. So we're seeing that already happening. Think of Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Hamas. It seems like each war just gets intense.
Right. But also think about people that came before us, all the wars that have happened before us, World War I, World War II, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. Oh my goodness, all the Holocaust people, what were they thinking during that time? I mean,
and
is this the end? And
wars in your own country.
Right.
Because we're speaking from American standpoint.
And there's a whole lot more than we're leaving out, of course. But we're just wondering, were those people in those times, were they thinking, is this the end? Surely the end is near. That's probably what they were thinking too.
Yeah.
So yeah. But something that needs to happen before the end times actually occurs is, and if you're Christian, and you know this, you probably know this already, that according to, and it's also in another scripture,
but Matthew too.
Matthew, but this one I found in Mark chapter 13 verse 10 that says, and the gospel must be first preached to all the nations. And on that note, I did some research. Statistically speaking, We know of this book called Operation World. I might put it down then in the link down below, or have my husband put that in there. Operation World, and we're not getting paid for saying this or, that kind of thing. But we have read it. It's updated I want to say every 2 years or something like that. Operation World, it's a missions prayer book, a global prayer book. It is awesome. It has, I don't know how many countries in there, and it tells you the cultures, the religion, the peoples, what percentage is, Muslim, for example, versus Christian in that country. And then it tells you whether it's a persecuted nation where Christians are persecuted, or if it's a hostile nation where we're not allowed to go into their country to share Jesus. It gives you a whole bunch of information. And according to that book, as of 2024, and I don't know what month of 2024, it says that 28% of the world's population has yet to hear about Jesus. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you look at the numbers, 2.28 billion people of the world still need to hear about Jesus.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, wow, I've heard of missionaries talk about when they go to these foreign countries that everybody's heard about Coca-Cola. I mean, we all know Coca-Cola, right? But who's Jesus? That to me is mind-boggling. Here's some obstacles and challenges that I did research on why nations are not being reached for Christ as much as we would like them to. Cultural barriers, persecution, isolation, living, being in an isolated, living in remote areas, like in the jungles somewhere, and they've got cannibalism going on, for example. Believe it or not, that still goes on. Probably rare, but it's still there. And, excuse me, political strife or authority, where the government keeps one from coming into the country. They're interrogating you. They're wondering why you're there. You may say you're going there as a teacher, but then they keep you there for more questioning because they don't really trust the situation. Why are you really there? That kind of thing. Or there might be civil unrest. There might be civil wars going on. I know in parts of Africa there are civil wars constantly going on. I think in Chad, I could be wrong. That's the last I read. But the thing about persecution, y'all have maybe heard about the, on a side note, the Voice of the Martyrs. We used to be subscribed to them, and the only reason we're not subscribed to them anymore is because their stories were so traumatizing to me personally. All the things that those Christian martyrs have to go through to share Jesus with their natives that within their country. But I think that's a perfect way to share Jesus is people that are already in that country. For example, if you're Chinese and you live in China, then you would be the perfect candidate to share Jesus with people in your own country versus an American coming in, or another expat, like a European person coming in, or another person coming in, a foreigner, that's the word I'm looking for, a foreigner coming into China and wanting to share Jesus would be a lot more difficult and a lot more obstacle inclined than, per se, someone who's already there, a native living in the country. You have a much better situation. So if you're watching and you're from another country, wherever that may be, and yes, it might be risky. You might be risking your life, so just be careful. I'm not saying go ahead and do it. I'm just saying that you would have a better opportunity to be able to share Jesus with maybe just one person. It doesn't need to be a whole group of people, just one person, quietly, secretly. And yeah, it would require a risk, but it's a lot easier than someone coming in, like, for example, me and Valentine coming there to share Jesus. But yeah, so that's why I'm thinking, that's obviously why that nations are not being reached for Christ as quickly or as swiftly as we would want them to be as Christians.
Right.
So that has to happen before the end times, folks.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world needs to be reached for Jesus. So if you've heard of people saying I know of people who have actually said we are in the end times. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I can agree with that, but we are certainly maybe in the beginning stages, like we learned the beginning stages. And about beginnings, I like what it said about was it the Hebrew that you mentioned?
In
or
the Greek, the beginning of labor
the beginning
pains.
of labor pains. For those of you who are mothers and you've gone through labor, I thought that was interesting because I've gone through labor, and labor pains to me, those are like the contractions that you have, that kind of and if you're watching, if you had a monitor, if you went in the hospital and you had a monitor that was showing you your contractions, they're like mountains going up and down and up and down. If it's going up high, that means you're in pain. If it's going back down, you're not in pain anymore. And that's how the monitor would show it to you on the screen. But to me, that was like the beginning pain, and I thought I was in pain. But that was just like a beginning stage for the real stuff that was coming later, for the baby coming out of the canal. Now that is extremely painful. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. A natural birth, I had to go through that. Long story, but with the first one with Valentine, I had to go through that. And so those beginning pains were the contractions in my abdomen that was like a rise and a fall and a rise and a fall. And then that was preparing me for the real thing. So that puts it into perspective.
It does.
Yeah.
That's the reason why Jesus mentioned it.
Yeah.
And come to think of it, that's not the only time labor pains is mentioned in the Bible. It's throughout the Old and New Testament. That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Exactly.
Many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. We see that happening, like we mentioned, persecution. So really, I think Jesus is talking about we're in the in-between phase.
Right.
But the between phase of when Jesus, he, rose up to heaven. The disciples were down below, and Jesus blessed them, and he went up to heaven. And now we are waiting for him to come back for his church and all the stuff that will take place afterwards.
Yeah.
So, lots of things to do. Love of many will grow cold. Verse 13, but he who endures to the end shall be saved. Well, we know that if you are a Christian, we are saved through Christ. That is a promise. And we do know that during the end times, or the tribulation, I would just say, there will be people who will come to Christ. And yes, they will go through horrific things, but they will endure to the end and will be saved. They will experience salvation and live with Jesus for eternity.
Yeah. And I know we weren't going to mention the rapture, but some people have been saying that if you'll see on your YouTube feed, I've been getting this a lot. Rapture. The rapture is here. The rapture has come. Please don't believe any of those things that you see.
Because I'm still here. We're still here.
Come on. That's almost silly. Come on. It's just really silly. So, I mean, if you believe in the rapture, please, I think I read somewhere that even Jesus himself does not know when that will
That's
come,
true.
believe it or not, and Jesus is God, is he not? So if you're a Christian, you believe in the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, all in one. Yeah, so that's just, I'm sorry, but that's just going too far. Please don't, and when you have people saying, tomorrow, the day will, that's it, the day, the world will come to an end. Nobody knows when that will be, per se. So please don't believe any of that either, that even if they are some wonderful pastor, prophet, prophetess, whatever they call themselves these days, I'm not sure. And I'm not making fun of them. I'm just, and in that sense, I'm sure there are modern day prophets and modern day prophetess, but to actually come out and say tomorrow is the last day of the world, or tomorrow we will all be raptured up. Nobody knows the hour or the time. Even Jesus himself does not know that. So you can already kind of delete that from your feed, your YouTube feed.
Because it hasn't happened, as we know.
Right.
I don't know all my history or prophecies that well. I have to do some research, but I do know that more prophecies have to take place. I know that people think we might be in the partial prophecy phase, when Russia attacked Ukraine, and we know that Iran is on Russia's side and on Hamas' side, and that it does mention Russia in the Bible by a different name. I think it's Magog or something like that. My daddy would know, so watch his shorts to give you more background on those kind of names.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are still more things that have to happen, and the gospel's to preach. And it says in Ephesians, we are predestined, those who are predestined for salvation, which means there is a certain number who will come to know Christ. And until that happens, then the end times is not yet here.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I mentioned rapture, and I know we weren't supposed to talk about that. That'll be a totally different subject altogether. But we're not here to judge people who do believe in the rapture or don't believe in the rapture, because there's some, depending on what denomination you are, you may not believe in the rapture. You may not believe in that time, and others do believe in that. But we're not here to argue about that, or to say we are right and you're wrong, or you're right and we're wrong. Everybody it depends on your interpretation of the Bible, as far as that's concerned. So, but that'll be a totally different, that may be the next subject, who knows? But right now we were just mainly covering, are we in the end times? And we can say that we are definitely in the beginning of those end times. But we don't know what...
You can feel the tension in the air,
how many years that is. We don't know. I've asked my husband how many years he thinks it'll be from now, and I forgot what he said. Maybe... He thinks it's quite soon, actually. I was thinking more like 100 plus years. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a human. I'm just speculating. So it'd be kind of interesting to see what y'all think. When do you think is the end of times?
It would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'll share this. Ever since I was a little girl, I always had this feeling that I would live to see the rapture.
Wow.
I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I don't know. Just had that feeling, but only God Himself knows.
Yeah.
And it's funny. When I was 9 years old, Revelation used to be my favorite book of the Bible, and I was way too young to understand what all of them. I think I was just fascinated by the signs and wonders. Now that I'm older, I have a different book of the Bible that's my favorite. But I'm just saying, I don't know why I brought that up. I just remembered a well-known speaker. I won't give his name because then you might, I don't know. I don't want to weird anyone out because he is pretty well known. I don't know if he's still living or not, but I was at a camp, a Bible camp when I was 9 years old, and we just had a random talk over lunch. He said, "What's your favorite book of Bible?" And I said, "Revelation." He's like, "Wow, Revelation." I was only 9. I don't know, I just think it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Well, so we hope that you enjoyed this video. Give some topics. We really want to keep this low-key.
Yeah.
Try not to have any arguments in the comments. It really distresses us, and I'm sure it distresses you too.
Yes.
I mean, I do have my own convictions and way of looking at things. Like my mom said, we all have our own interpretation, but even our own interpretation, whether it's coming close to the truth or not, it's probably not the whole truth because we ourselves don't know. We can't know everything.
Very well said.
That.
Yeah.
Be respectful in the comments. If you do have a complaint or issue, send us an email instead, please. And we hope that you like and subscribe and that you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.